Okay, so this is the landing page of the Sandbox. It's hosted on a tool called Jason will go into that later, but essentially Maelstrom also looks in a similar format. So immediately these boxes up here correspond to that schema levels we went over earlier. So here they correspond to these levels. And I will just start by giving an overview. So going into the studies page, you'll see an inventory of the studies available and their brief study descriptions. And at the current stage in our development, we have a few made up entries with dummy data, as well as 4 real study entries. And the 4 real entries are the ED registry, the consent registry, my hearts map, and the personal impact survey picks. Okay, so for the real entries, for us to input the information for the real entries, we had to directly contact the researchers to obtain their study protocols from RISE, as well as their codebooks and data dictionaries. Okay, so now going into a study record page, you can see that it contains the study description, investigator information, study design, and information on access, and so on. These squares on the top indicate the corresponding number of datasets and variables available within that study. And then further down, a timeline is shown. This is automatically created when we input information on the populations. Each segment of the line here represents a data collection event. And then further down, you get more information on the populations and information on the sources of data. Okay. There's also variable classification. So these are the annotations that we were looking at earlier. It looks a bit funky here because we've not gone into manually label every variable yet. We are just labeling as we go for the purpose of the demo. Okay. All right, so now we head over to the search. So the search function allows for searches on different studies and variables. On the left side, these are search criteria split by the same schema levels we saw earlier, and those are also mirrored up top here with corresponding counts. These counts will change as search criteria is being refined. We'll use 2 search levels in this demo. One is the studies and the other is variables. So under studies, you can see many properties available. You can select, say, based on the start date of the study. You can select on the minimum or maximum age at the time of recruitment, and also select based on study design, for example. So for example, if one wanted to identify studies with relevant designs that would collect information useful to answer their specific research questions, they would use these kind of a search. I'll go to variables. So under variables, there's the areas of information. These are the domains and subdomains we talked about in the Maelstrom taxonomy. So you can select one, or select all, or select across various domains. And you could also filter by keywords up top. So for example, if I type in sex, it will display all of the domains that contains the word sex, which cuts across various categories. Okay, and also under variables is variable properties. Here you would be able to search for words in the variable name or variable label, and that would generate a list of variables that mention that keyword. You could also search based on the variable type and the nature of the variables. All right, so let's launch into a sample search. So for example, if one is interested in knowing how many studies are conducted on school-age children. So to do that search, you will start by searching in study properties, and you can set a limit on the age. Okay, put 18. Okay. Okay. There. So it's returned with 2 studies that's conducted on school-age children. Because we only search at the study and population level, we can see literally the count of variables available in each study without further refinement. So we can see that my hearts map contains 1,052 and PICS contain 5,000 plus variables. So in this case, we would like to further refine the search. At this stage, maybe let's say we want to see in the studies that is conducted on school-age kiddos, how is sex, gender, and sexual orientation collected? So to refine the search, you would keep the search criteria, which is shown here, but you will go into areas of information, and you can find annotations related to sex. So we see there is sex and gender and sexual behaviors. So let's say we select those 2. So now we've got a further refinement of the search. And here, essentially, it's showing that there are 32 variables across 2 datasets within my hearts map, and 22 variables across 2 datasets within PICS. And these are all the variables related to at least one of this search criteria on top, which is sex or gender or sexual behaviors. And now, if I click on this number, it's going to take me to the variable list view, which I can also toggle using the tabs on top. And the list here shows the variable with names, labels, dataset, and the study they're part of. So you can choose to download this list if you wish by just selecting all and clicking on download on top. It will create a CSV file that's the exact replica of what you see here. And if you're interested in knowing more about one variable, you can select the variable, and it will show a page on variable details. So the labels, the value types, and so on. And this is the classification it falls under. Okay, going back. And then the other note is that these counts are updating as we go. And let's say we want to do a further refinement. We want to know whether these studies collected information on COVID, for example. We could go back to areas of information and search for respiratory. And I know this because I just did the tagging. Say diseases of the respiratory system and symptoms and signs. And it returns with 80 variables that will fit at least one of these criteria. There are advanced searches here. I won't show it in detail, but you could change the relationship between each of these search criteria and or things like that. Okay, and then I also wanted to show some nifty features if we actually had data in the system. Jason had put in, I think, 10,000 dummy data points. And if you had actual data, it will automatically create these summary stats tables. So for instance, for a categorical variable like sex, it will produce the percentages and a nice pie chart. And if it was a continuous variable like age, Maelstrom will give you a frequency distribution. So we obviously this requires underlying data, which we're not diving into just yet, but this is a nifty feature that might entice users in the future.